Okay. And how many verses are written up there? Two. Okay. There Devasvam Bhagam Arhanti Ye Tulyaya Sahitavaha Satrayaga Ivaitasmin Esadharma Sanatanaha Itisvan Pratyesadanvai Daitya Jatamatsaraha Durbala Prabalan Rajan Grihita Kalasan Muhu Devasvam Bhagamarhanti Ye Tulyaya Sahitavaha Satrayaga Ivai Tasmin Esha Dharma Sanatanaha Iti Svan Pratya Shedanvai Daitya Jatamatsaraha Durbala Prabalan Rajan Grihita Kalasan Muhu Devasvam Bhagamahanti Ye Tulyaya Sahetavaha Esha Dharma Sanatanaha Itisvan Pratyashedanvai Daitya Jatamatsaraha Durbala Prabalan Rajan Grihita Kalasan Muhu Devasvam Bhagamahanti Ye Tulyaya Sahitavaha Snatanaha Itisvan Pratyashedanvai Durbala Prabalan Rajan Grihita Kalasan Muhu Ye Tulyaya Sahitavaha Satrayaga Ivai Tasmin Esha Dharma Sanatanaha Itisvan Pratyashedanvai Daitya Jatamatsaraha Durbala Prabalan Rajan Grihita Kalasan Muhu. Ladies. Devasvam Bhagamahanti Ye Tulyaya Sahitavaha Satrayaga Ivai Tasmin Esha Dharma Sanatanaha Iti Svan Pratyashedanvai Daitya Jatamatsaraha Durbalahat Prabalan Brajan Grihita Kalasan Muhu. Deva, the demigods. Swambhagam, their own share. Arhanti, deserve to take. Yea, all of them who. Tulya ayasa hetavaha, who made an equal endeavour. Satrayage, in the performance of sacrifices. Eva, similarly. Etasmin, in this matter. Eshaha, this. Dharmaha, religion. Sanatanaha, eternal. Iti, thus, Svan, among themselves, Pratyashedhan, forbade one another. Vai, indeed, Daityaha, the sons of Diti, Jattamatsaraha, envious. Durbalaha, weak. Prabalan, by force. Rajan, O king. Grihita, possessing. Kalasan, the jug containing nectar. Muhu, constantly. Translation, some of the demons said, all the demigods have taken part in churning the ocean of milk. Now, as everyone has an equal right to partake in any public sacrifice according to the eternal religious system, it is befitting that the demigods now have a share of the nectar. O king, in this way the weaker demons forbade the stronger demons to take the nectar. Purport. Desiring to take the nectar, those among the demons who were less strong spoke in favour of the demigods. The weaker Daityas naturally pleaded on behalf of the demigods to stop the stronger Daityas from drinking the nectar without sharing it. In this way, disagreement and trouble arose as they forbade one another to drink the nectar. Okay. Let's read the next verse. There's chaos here. Chaos in the demons' ranks. Etasmin, maybe we could turn this down a little. It's loud for me, so it must be loud for you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. How's that? That's a bit quieter. Okay. Etasmin antare Vishnu sarvapaya vidishvaraha yoshidrupa manirdesyam tadhara paramadbhutam prakshaniyot palasyamam sarvavayava sundaram. Beautiful. Samana karana paranam sukalpolona sananam nava yovana nirvrita stanabhara krishodaram Mukhamodhanuraktali Jankarodvignalochanam Bibratsuke Shabarena Malam Utpullamalikam Sugriva Kantabharanam Subujang Gadabhushitam Virajambara Sambhita Nitamba Dvipa Sobhaya Kansya Pravila Sadvalgu Chalachcharana Nupuram. Nupura. That's ankle bells, right? Ankle bell. Svarira Smita Vikshipta Bhruv Vilasavalokanai Dvaichayuta Pachetasu Kamamudi Payanmoho. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who can counteract any unfavourable situation, then assumed the form of an extremely beautiful woman. This incarnation as a woman, Mohini-murti, was most pleasing to the mind. Her complexion resembled in colour a newly grown blackish lotus, and every part of her body was beautifully situated. Her ears were equally decorated with earrings. Her cheeks were very beautiful. Her nose was raised, and her face full of youthful lustre. Her large breasts made her waist seem very thin. Attracted by the aroma of her face and body, bumblebees hummed around her, and thus her eyes were restless. Her hair, which was extremely beautiful, was garlanded with malika flowers. Her attractively constructed neck was decorated with a necklace and other ornaments. Her arms were decorated with bangles. Her body was covered with a clean sari, and her breasts seemed like islands in an ocean of beauty. Her legs were decorated with ankle bells. That's the nupura. Because of the movements of her eyebrows, as she smiled with shyness and glanced over the demons, all the demons were saturated with lusty desires, and every one of them desired to possess her. Purport: because of the Supreme Lord's assuming the form of a beautiful woman to arouse the lusty desires of the demons, a description of her complete beauty is given here. We shall move on. Are you getting the picture? Yeah. So what's going on? Well, that's the end of that chapter. The demons have stolen the nectar. The demigods are in distress. And the Lord appears to protect his devotees. But paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. So chapter 9 is the Lord incarnates as Mohini-murti. This chapter describes how the demons, being enchanted by the beauty of the Mohini form, agreed to hand over the container of nectar to Mohini Devi, who tactfully delivered it to the demigods. When the demons got possession of the container of nectar, an extraordinarily beautiful young woman appeared before them. All the demons became captivated by the young woman's beauty and became attached to her. Now, because the demons were fighting amongst themselves to possess the nectar, they selected this beautiful woman as a mediator to settle their quarrel, which was a mistake. Huh? Taking advantage of their weakness in this regard, Mohini, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, got the demons to promise that whatever decision she might give, they would not refuse to accept it. When the demons made this promise, the beautiful woman Mohini-murti had the demigods and demons sit in different lines so that she could distribute the nectar. Therefore, by cheating them, she distributed all the nectar to the demigods. When the demons saw this cheating of Mohini-murti, they remained silent. But one demon, named Rahu, dressed himself like a demigod and sat down in the line of the demigods. It's like when we have prasadam, we line up. So they're getting the prasadam. Rahu, however, had already tasted the when the Supreme Personality of Godhead understood how Rahu was cheating, he immediately cut off the demon's head. Rahu, however, had already tasted the nectar, and therefore, although his head was severed, he remained alive. After the demigods finished drinking the nectar, the Supreme Personality of Godhead assumed his own form. Sukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by describing how powerful is the chanting of the holy names, pastimes and paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, not many purports here. So we'll read on. Sukadeva Goswami said, therefore, the demons became inimical toward one another. Throwing and snatching the container of nectar, they gave up their friendly relationship. Meanwhile, they saw a very beautiful young woman coming forward toward them. Upon seeing the beautiful woman, the demon said, alas, how wonderful is her beauty. How wonderful the lustre of her body, and how wonderful the beauty of her youthful age. Speaking in this way, they quickly approached her, full of lusty desires to enjoy her, and began to inquire from her in many ways. Oh, wonderfully beautiful girl, you have such nice eyes, resembling the petals of a lotus flower. Who are you? Where do you come from? What is your purpose in coming here? And to whom do you belong? O you, whose thighs are extraordinarily beautiful, our minds are becoming agitated simply because of seeing you. Purport. The demons inquired from the wonderfully beautiful girl, to whom do you belong? A woman is supposed to belong to her father before her marriage, to her husband after her marriage, and to her grown sons in her old age. In regard to this inquiry, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the question, to whom do you belong, means, whose daughter are you? Since the demons could understand that the beautiful girl was still unmarried, every one of them desired to marry her. Thus they inquired, whose daughter are you? Extremely bewildering for the demons. Translation, what to speak of human beings? Even the demigods, demons, siddhas, Gandharvas, Charanas, and the various directors of the universe, the Prajapatis, have never touched you before. It is not that we are unable to understand your identity. Purport, even the Asuras observed the etiquette that no one should address a married woman with lust. The great analyst Chanakya Pandit says, Matrivat Paradarishu. One should consider another's wife to be one's mother. The Asuras, the demons, took it for granted that the beautiful young woman, Mohini-murti, who had arrived before them, was certainly not married. Therefore, they assumed that no one in the world, including the demigods, the Gandharvas, the Charanas, and the siddhas, had ever touched her. The demons knew that the young girl was unmarried, and therefore they dared to address her. They supposed that the young girl, Mohini-murti, had come there to find a husband among all those present, the Daityas, the demigods, the Gandharvas, and so on. Atmavat sarvabhuteshu. Text 5. Oh, beautiful girl with beautiful eyebrows. Certainly Providence, by his causeless mercy, has sent you to please the senses and minds of all of us. Is this not a fact? Text 6. We are now all engaged in enmity among ourselves because of this one subject matter, the container of nectar. Although we have been born in the same family, we are becoming increasingly inimical. Oh, thin-waisted woman who is so beautiful in your prestigious position, we therefore request you to favour us by settling our dispute. Purport, the demons understood that the beautiful woman had attracted the attention of them all. Therefore, they unanimously requested her to become the arbiter to settle their dispute. Text 7. Vayam Kasyapa Dayada. Oh, hang on. I'll just read the translation. All of us, both demons and demigods, have been born of the same father, Kasyapa, and thus we are related as brothers. But now we are exhibiting our personal prowess in dissension. Therefore, we request you to settle our dispute and divide the nectar equally among us. Okay. Text 8. Having thus been requested by the demons, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had assumed the form of a beautiful woman, began to smile. Looking at them with attractive feminine gestures, she spoke as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the form of Mohini. In the form of Mohini, told the demons, O sons of Kasyapa Muni, I am only a prostitute. How is it that you have so much faith in me? A learned person never puts his faith in a woman. And the word is pumscholyam, translated as unto a prostitute who agitates the minds of men. Purport. Chanakya Pandit, the great politician and moral instructor, said, Visvaso naivakartavya strishu raja kuleshu cha. Never put your faith in a woman or a politician. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was pretending to be a woman, warned the demons against putting so much faith in her. For she had appeared as an attractive woman ultimately to cheat them. Indirectly disclosing the purpose for which she had appeared before them, she said to the sons of Kasyapa, how is this? You were all born of a great rishi, yet you are putting your faith in a woman who is loitering here and there like a prostitute, unprotected by father or husband. Women in general should not be trusted, and what to speak of a woman loitering like a prostitute. The word kamini is significant. In this connection, kaminishu nayatihi. Women, especially beautiful young women, invoke the dormant lusty desires of a man. Therefore, according to Manu Samhita, every woman should be protected either by her husband, by her father, or by her grown sons. Without such protection, a woman will be exploited. Indeed, women like to be exploited by men. As soon as a woman is exploited by a man, she becomes a common prostitute. This is explained by Mohini-murti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I'll read the next verse that doesn't have a purport. Text 10. O demons, as monkeys, jackals and dogs are unsteady in their sexual relationships and want newer and newer friends every day, women who live independently seek new friends daily. Friendship with such a woman is never permanent. This is the opinion of learned scholars. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmaye Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Dadati Sva Prajantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Garim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. So Krishna has a plan for the demons and for the demigods. And in order to protect the devotees, the Lord has appeared in this uniquely bewildering form. And what's his purpose? Or what's her purpose? Her purpose is to cheat the demons, right? In order to protect the devotees, the demigods. Because if the demons drink the amrit, they'll become extremely powerful and upset the whole universal system, universal affairs, which ultimately Lord Vishnu won't allow, ultimately. So, even though Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu, I'm equal to everybody. Nobody is my enemy and nobody is my friend. Still, the Lord favours the demigods for his purposes. And naturally will favour the demigods because their tendency is always to render service to the Lord. That's innate. That's the nature of the devatas. What is it? Om tad Vishnu paramam padam sada pasyanti surayaho. The suras, or the demigods, the devatas, the devotees, I think that's where we get the word devotee from. Devata, right? Devata, devotee, same construct, right? So, but because the demigods commit an offence to their guru, this is this is the broad teaching from this pastime, then the demons had the upper hand and became powerful. And so they went on a, as Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, a sea churning, right? In the Bhagavad Gita purport, it's described as a sea journey. The original version of the Bhagavad Gita was, the devotees couldn't understand what Prabhupada was saying. And he's saying a sea churning, and they thought he said a sea journey. The demigods and the demons went on a sea journey, but they were actually churning to get the nectar, and they were cooperating. Which in and of itself is a jagya, right? The prachetas were glorified by Lord Vishnu and appreciated because of their cooperation amongst each other. And so, as a result of that cooperation, the Lord offered them benedictions. Because you cooperate so nicely together, I'll give you anything you want. What do you want? Of course, the interesting characteristic of the darshan of the Lord is that one, especially for the devotees, they lose their material desires. Dhruva Maharaj, when he had the darshan of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu offered him whatever he wanted, he said, after having the darshan, he said, I don't want anything. If I've got you, then what more do I need? Interesting, huh? In comparison to what the demons are here. When they see Mohini-murti, they're not pacified, but they're agitated. The nature of the demons. They want to enjoy for themselves, whereas Prabhupada says, for the devotees, the prime motivation is that Krishna enjoys. Right? The devotee meditates, how can whatever I'm doing it for Krishna's pleasure. Right? Or even when the devotee thinks of something for himself, he still at the same time thinks of doing it in cooperation with the Lord. So, Mohini-murti is, as we've read here, extraordinarily beautiful. And so much so that the demon's totally smitten by her. We have a devotee called Smit, don't we? What does Smit mean in Hindi? I guess it's Hindi word, right? Smit. What does that mean? Huh? Smiling. Oh, okay. I don't think they're related. Smitten means, knocked out by her beauty. But what are they knocked? They're knocked out by the desire to enjoy for themselves, right? And of course, this karma, what is it? Kam, krodh, moha, is it? That desire, when it's not satisfied, becomes anger, lust. Right? Unsatisfied becomes anger. And then from that comes bewilderment, right? So in Vedic culture, there are guidelines, some might say restrictions, we call regulated principles, to keep the devotees on a progressive path of self-realization. There's avoidance of an environment that will produce desires to enjoy the material world. Right? Because from that last calm comes, when it's not satisfied, comes frustration and anger. Or even if there's an engagement in lusty activities, does that get rid of material desire? No, you just want more. Right? And when you can't have more than what's your quota, the desire will still be inflamed, right? And with that comes bewilderment and really basically an absorption in the bodily concept of life. Right, so that's avoided as much as possible. And so the regulated principles are designed in such a way so that the citizens of the state, and this is meant to be enforced or established by the kings, right? The saintly kings meant to establish these religious principles within society so that people are not influenced by strong material desires. The whole idea is to pacify the citizens so that they could make progress in spiritual life. This is really the purpose of the Varna and Ashrama system, meant to be established by the kings, the saintly kings. Right? Of course, in Kali Yuga, we don't see any, we don't see this. Men and women are encouraged to dress in provocative ways to increase material desire. The advertising and social media and there was a time when Facebook was for making friends. Right? Do you remember that? Nowadays it's just an avalanche of advertisements. I don't know if you noticed. Right? Of course we can use it. These are tools that can be used for Krishna's purpose. So, better to be a creator than a consumer on these social media, because it's all designed just to agitate and disturb, right? It's really what it is. And, agitate and disturb you so that they take your money out of your pocket and it goes into theirs, effectively. So anyway, it's very interesting here. Mohini-murti, the Lord himself, warns the demons, right? You should not trust me, right? I am a single woman just walking around here and there, right? Showing off, effectively, right? Is what she's doing. And why is she doing it? Or why is he doing it? Because the ultimate purpose is to protect the interests of the demigods. And ultimately to protect religious principles. But yet appears in a way that's contrary to religious principles in many respects. And warns the demons, don't trust a woman. I'm going to cheat you. So a lot of lessons here that need to be meditated on carefully, and why Prabhupada encourages the protection of women effectively. And he makes the point here that women in general, insight or I don't know, what's the word Prabhupada says here? What was the word that Prabhupada said in the purport? What was the word? Starts with an I. What's the word? Invoke. Right? Invoke the dormant lusty desires of a man. Sometimes there's this mistaken kind of premise made that it's the woman who's the cause of the lusty desires, right? But actually the lusty desires exist in a man, right? It's just that the woman's presence brings them out. Now, in a setting where the religious, where the regulated principles are the guidelines within which one acts and behaves, that's entirely appropriate, right? Because it's well understood. Most of us will be householders, right? And so within the setting of marriage and within the setting of the regulated principles, the connection between a man and a woman, Krishna says, I am that connection, right? Because it's not degrading. But where there's a lacking of religious and regulated principles, and there's just an inciting of lusty desires, which is what Mohini-murti is doing, incredibly. Right? She's doing this deliberately. Right? That environment is detrimental to the women and detrimental to the men. Because ultimately all it does is inflame material desire. And there's that lust, greed, anger, frustration. And Vijay, Steve's outside, I think, or he's maybe on his way, but I think he's planning to come here. Can you just go out and tell him I'll be there in a minute, please? Yeah, so it's interesting, very interesting, that the Lord has appeared in the form of a woman just to bewilder the demons. I mean, it's a little puzzling. But when we understand the purpose behind what the Lord is doing, then we can understand it, but we have to understand it within context. Right? And of course, you know, there's some heavy statements here. The women are, you know, never trust a woman and so on. We have to be careful in analysing these kind of statements, because it's very interesting. Prabhupada says, you know, this is a referral to the materialistic-minded woman. And you know, we see plenty of it. I remember the other day I got on my... I hopped on my bike and I rode into the city, and then got to Flinders Street station and hopped on the train to go to Water Gardens. So usually I catch the train out knowing that when I ride back it's always going to be downhill. Anyway, went out, and then there was this girl on the train, right? And she must have been talking to her friends, and she was kind of, I could see, you know, she was showing off to her friends and kind of pouting. I was thinking, woo. So, you know, girls know how to behave in order to attract boys, right? And vice versa too, by the way. Yeah. So, Mohini-murti was leveraging that ultimately for the benefit of the demigods, because at that point in time the demons had the nectar, and the nectar is not meant to empower the demons, but rather that nectar is meant for the devotees, and ultimately meant for devotional service. So when everybody is engaged in devotional service, even the relationship between the boys and the girls becomes positive, right? But in a material context, when the activities are motivated simply by lusty and material desires, then ultimately that'll bring about degradation and frustration. Because enjoyment in the material world does not bring a sustained or sustainable situation, right? And this is understood in the Vedic culture. There may be the attraction between a boy and a girl. There will be, you know, it's almost an eternal interaction, or at least manifest in the material world. But the results are temporary, and ultimately leaves, you know, can leave a very bitter taste. There's a little bit of pleasure, but then what happens? Adyanta vanta kunteya na teshu ramate buddha. I rang up Zach early this morning. I wanted to tell him that I was coming for class. And I said, and he said, oh, I'm recovering from the wisdom, having my wisdom teeth pulled. And I said to him, how do you feel? He said, oh, okay. Right? You know, it's times like these that you understand that the material world is actually designed for suffering, not for enjoyment. Right? But yet, you know, that the promise of material existence is, you'll enjoy, you'll have a good time. But Vedic culture knows that's only limited and temporary. If you spend your life pursuing material enjoyment, you'll only end up frustrated, angry, unhappy. And so while there's a license for engaging that material enjoyment within the regulated principles, It's still designed ultimately not for material pleasure, but ultimately when it's geared or when it's focused on pleasing Krishna, then the emphasis is then not on material enjoyment, but the emphasis ultimately on devotional service and self-realization, spiritual advancement. That's why we have these what we call the regulated principles. And why in Vedic culture, as Prabhupada's pointing out here, why the women are, it's recommended that the women are under the shelter of their father, under the shelter of the husband, and under the shelter of the elderly son, the elder son, so that there's no risk of exploitation and misengagement. So the devotees embrace these regulated principles because the ultimate goal is self-realization, not sensual engagement. Sensual engagement may be there based or under the protection of regulated principles, but not in an unfettered and unprotected way. Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions on any of these points?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, and thank you for the wonderful class. Prabhu, you were talking about desires, and I sometimes wonder, what is the...
I was talking about desires, yes.
Yes, so I sometimes wonder, what is the role of the super soul inside in the appearance of a living being's desires? Does it help a devotee manifest good desires, or is it just our free will?
What is the role of the super soul in fulfilling desires?
In manifesting our desires.
Mata smriti jnanam apavanam cha. From me comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes, okay, there's the answer. 15th chapter of 15th verse of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So, we've come into the material world for what purpose?